Ladies and gentlemen, there are seasons in your life when no one will clap for you, no one will understand you, and no one will walk with you. And that's okay. You were never called to be understood by everyone. You were called to be obedient to the assignment placed on your life. Sometimes the road gets lonely not because you're doing something wrong, because you're doing something right. You're growing, you're maturing, you're stepping into places others aren't willing to go. That's why you feel alone. You're in rare territory. Don't wait for a cheerleading squad. Don't wait for family to get it. Don't wait for friends to applaud you. If the vision was given to you, then it's okay if you have to walk it out by yourself. Do it alone. In fact, some of your greatest progress will come when you stop waiting for agreement. People may doubt you, distance themselves, or dismiss your dreams, but when you've got favor over your life, their opinion doesn't cancel your calling. Look through history, through faith, through invention. Many of the most powerful movements began with one person in a divine direction. They didn't start with applause. They started in silence, in secret places with commitment and courage. So when it gets quiet, don't retreat. When no one responds, don't resent it. Use the silence to sharpen your skill. Use the space to hear the whisper of God. He does his best work in isolation. It's in the desert that character is built. It's in the wilderness that strength is forged. You may be outnumbered, but you're not outpowered. You may be overlooked, but you are not unworthy. Don't be discouraged by the distance between where you are and where you're going. It just means you're in transit. Keep moving, keep building, keep showing up, even if you have to do it alone. Because when your time comes, and it will, you'll look back and thank God that he didn't let the wrong people go with you. You'll see that doing it alone wasn't a punishment. It was a promotion in disguise. So take the step, launch the dream, write the book, start the project. Speak the vision. Do it even if no one claps, because heaven already has. Isolation can be preparation. When you find yourself in seasons of life where you are alone, misunderstood, or seemingly left behind, it's easy to assume something has gone wrong. But not every season of silence is a sign of failure. In fact, some of the most powerful growth, revelation, and transformation happens in isolation. It's not a punishment, it's a divine setup for what's ahead. When you are stripped of distractions, when the noise dies down, and when the approval of others is no longer accessible, that's when your true character is formed. The quiet places are where purpose becomes clear. You're not hidden to be forgotten, you're hidden to be developed. There is a misconception in our society that being alone equals being weak, that success is always public, and that progress must be visible. But that's not the truth. Think of a seed buried in the dark soil. It looks like nothing is happening on the surface, but underneath, a process is taking place that's essential for growth. Roots are forming, strength is building, and identity is being shaped. In the same way, your isolation is producing something inside of you that will eventually manifest on the outside, but only if you don't give up in the dark. In isolation, you begin to learn the difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone is a physical state. Loneliness is an emotional one. You can be surrounded by people and still feel lonely, or you can be completely alone and feel fully at peace. That peace comes from discovering your purpose, tuning into your inner voice, and most importantly, aligning yourself with divine direction. Sometimes the reason you're alone is because you're being set apart. What you carry may not be meant to be diluted by public opinion or influenced by people who can't see what's inside of you. You're not like everyone else, and the preparation you need won't look like everyone else's path. Preparation in isolation also allows you to shed what doesn't belong. It gives you time to detox from unhealthy mindsets, from people who drained your energy, and from patterns that held you back. Without the pressure to perform or impress, you begin to understand who you are at the core. That clarity will become the foundation of your confidence. When the time comes to step out, you won't be stepping out insecure. You'll be stepping out solid, secure, and seasoned. Some of the greatest leaders, creators, and spiritual figures in history had to go through seasons of isolation before stepping into their calling. They were not anointed in front of crowds. They were refined in caves, deserts, and lonely places. That solitude wasn't weakness, it was strategy. When no one else is around, you begin to rely less on human affirmation and more on divine confirmation. You learn to stand not because someone is holding your hand, but because you've been taught to trust your feet. You become resilient not because the journey was easy, but because the silence taught you how to hear the voice that truly matters. So if you find yourself in a season where you feel alone, don't curse it, embrace it. Ask what this solitude is trying to teach you. Use it to sharpen your gifts, deepen your faith, and solidify your identity. Don't rush out of the quiet season before you've learned what it came to teach you, because when preparation is complete, the door will open, and when it does, you'll realize that the time spent alone wasn't wasted. It was necessary. You weren't being isolated to be diminished. You were being prepared to be elevated. Internal validation over external applause is one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your personal and spiritual growth. So many people live their lives trying to gain the approval of others, constantly seeking affirmation, applause, and attention. They measure their worth by how many people like them, follow them, or praise them. But true strength comes when you no longer depend on the claps of the crowd to keep moving forward. Internal validation is when you know who you are, what you carry, and where you're going, regardless of who notices or celebrates you. There's nothing wrong with being appreciated or recognized. We all enjoy encouragement. But when your self-worth depends on how others respond to you, you're giving away control over your peace and direction. You'll find yourself chasing approval instead of fulfilling purpose. One day people may love you and the next they may forget you. If their opinion builds you, then their opinion can break you. That's why you must be rooted in something deeper, an identity that doesn't shift based on trends, applause, or attention. When you validate yourself from within, you begin to walk differently. You stop needing everyone to understand your decisions because you know they were made with clarity and conviction. You stop over-explaining your vision to people who were never assigned to carry it with you. Not everyone will get your calling, and that's okay. You weren't built to please the crowd. You were built to honor your calling. Sometimes that means doing things that others question or even criticize. But when your heart is aligned and your intentions are pure, the absence of applause won't shake your direction. Developing internal validation means spending time understanding your values, your boundaries, and your voice. It means knowing what drives you, what you stand for, and what matters to you without waiting for someone else to approve it. This kind of self-awareness creates stability. You're no longer swayed by trends or pressure. You're no longer trying to keep up with appearances. You find peace in being consistent with your purpose rather than popular in the moment. Many of the most impactful people in the world weren't the loudest or the most followed at the beginning. They were the most faithful to their process. They didn't need the world to applaud every move. They moved because they believed in what they were building. The applause eventually came, but they didn't start with it. And that's the same principle for you. The real reward is not external recognition, it's internal alignment. It's being able to look in the mirror and know you're living with integrity, that you're staying true to your calling even when no one is watching. Don't be discouraged if the world isn't clapping for you right now. That silence may be the very space where your greatness is being shaped. Let the applause be a bonus, not a necessity. The moment you stop chasing validation, you start attracting purpose. The moment you stop needing people to cheer, you start hearing your own voice more clearly. And when that voice aligns with the voice of God, you become unstoppable. So keep showing up, keep creating, building, and becoming, even if no one sees it yet. You don't need a spotlight to be significant. You don't need followers to be favored. Your value isn't based on volume, it's based on vision. And that vision will lead you places that applause never could. Validate yourself from within, and the right people, opportunities, and moments will find you in time without you having to chase them. Greatness doesn't need a crowd. One of the biggest misconceptions in our culture today is that significance is only validated by visibility. That if people aren't watching you, applauding you, or surrounding you, then what you're doing must not matter. But the truth is, the most meaningful breakthroughs, the most significant victories, and the deepest transformations often happen when no one else is around. You don't need a stage to grow. You don't need an audience to evolve. Greatness is not birthed in the spotlight. It is shaped in the shadows. Think about how many times in life the foundation of something powerful is built in private. A builder doesn't begin with the roof, they start with what's underground, the part no one sees. And the strength of that foundation determines how tall the structure can go. The same applies to your life. Your discipline, your patience, your character, your faith. Those things are developed when you're alone, when it's just you and the vision. Crowds can admire you, but they can't develop you. Applause can celebrate you, but it can't sustain you. Only personal commitment and private obedience can prepare you for lasting impact. There will be moments when it feels like no one sees your effort. You're working, you're praying, you're building, but there's no recognition. That's not a sign to quit, that's a sign to dig deeper. Because true greatness is not about being seen, it's about being solid. It's about becoming someone who can carry the weight of responsibility, the pressure of purpose, and the silence of preparation without needing public reassurance. The crowd is temporary, opinions shift, but what you build in the unseen seasons will stand through storms. Many people miss their calling because they're too focused on who's watching them rather than who's leading them. But your calling was never about being impressive to people. It was about being faithful to your purpose. There are going to be times when God calls you to walk alone, to stand firm without confirmation from others. That's when your roots grow deep. That's when you learn to trust your inner voice. That's when you understand that greatness is not measured by how loud the room gets when you speak, but by how steady your soul is when no one says a word. Even in history, some of the most influential lives were molded in isolation before they were ever celebrated. They had to walk through valleys before they ever stood on mountains. They had to stay hidden before they were revealed. And the same could be true for you. Just because you're not being noticed doesn't mean you're not making progress. Just because the crowd isn't clapping doesn't mean heaven isn't moving. Sometimes being unseen is your greatest advantage. It keeps you focused. It keeps you humble. It teaches you to lead with substance, not performance. So don't wait for a crowd to validate your contribution. Don't delay your progress waiting for someone to cheer you on. If you know what you're doing is right, necessary, and aligned with your calling, then do it with confidence, even in the quiet. Every great oak tree once grew in silence, rooted deep before it reached the sky. Your greatness isn't dependent on attention. It's dependent on authenticity, consistency, and purpose. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Greatness doesn't need a crowd. It just needs commitment. Loneliness is not emptiness. It's easy to assume that when you're alone, you're missing something. That when people are absent or support seems scarce, it must mean you've been forgotten or that you've somehow fallen behind. But that's not the truth. Loneliness, when viewed from a higher perspective, can actually be a sacred space, a space of reflection, a space of realignment, a space where clarity replaces confusion. Emptiness suggests lack, but loneliness, in its purest form, is often a setup for transformation. It's not about what you're without, it's about what you're being led into. We live in a time where being surrounded is glorified. More friends, more followers, more interactions, these things are often viewed as signs of success. But what if success isn't about how full your room is, but how full your soul is? What if your current season of loneliness isn't about isolation, but about insulation? Protecting you from distractions so you can hear what you couldn't hear before, see what you couldn't see before, and become what you couldn't become before. When everything around you gets quiet, what's inside of you gets louder. That's why loneliness is such a powerful tool in your growth. It forces you to face your own thoughts, your own fears, your own dreams without the filter of others' opinions. In that silence, you begin to rediscover your own voice, the one that gets drowned out in the noise of business and the chase for validation. You begin to discern which desires are truly yours and which ones were picked up from the crowd. That clarity is not empty, it's essential. Many people avoid loneliness at all costs because they confuse it with worthlessness. But being alone doesn't mean you're not worthy of love or success. It just means you're in a unique phase of refinement. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and they're formed alone. You don't see 10 diamonds huddled together in a mine. You see one buried deep being transformed over time. That process can't be rushed and it can't be done in a crowd. The same is true for you. What's forming in you is precious. It requires solitude. It requires stillness. And it requires you to trust that this season is not a step backward, but a preparation for the elevation ahead. In your loneliness, you also begin to realize that not all connections are good for your purpose. Just because you have people around you doesn't mean they're meant to walk with you. Sometimes relationships have to fade so revelation can rise. The people who left, the ones who didn't support you, the ones who misunderstood you, they weren't meant to carry the weight of your calling. Loneliness allows space for divine alignment, for the right people to find you at the right time, and for you to stop settling for company that costs you your clarity. This space you're in may feel empty, but it's not lacking. It's clearing the clutter. It's removing what no longer serves you so that what's meant for you can arrive. You may feel disconnected, but you are not directionless. Something bigger is being formed in this quiet. Use this season to learn, to heal, to grow. Let the loneliness lead you deeper into your purpose, not further into despair. The silence isn't a void, it's a canvas, and you are being given the opportunity to paint a future not influenced by fear or by crowd approval, but by vision, courage, and calling. So embrace the stillness. Find peace in the quiet. You're not empty, you're becoming whole. And when the time comes, you'll look back and see that the loneliness was never a curse. It was a cocoon. And now you're ready to fly. Sometimes separation is elevation. What feels like rejection, distance, or abandonment can actually be a divine redirection. There are seasons in life when certain people are removed, opportunities don't work out, or doors close, and it hurts. It confuses you. You question what went wrong or why you're being pushed away. But sometimes it's not that you're being pushed down, you're being pulled up. You're not being isolated for punishment, you're being separated for purpose. Elevation often begins with separation, because where you're going, not everyone can follow. It can be hard to understand in the moment. You thought certain relationships were permanent. You believed certain environments were meant to last forever. But growth demands movement, and movement demands change. If you stayed in the same circles, the same mindsets, the same routines, you'd stay in the same place. But you were created for more. And sometimes more requires that you let go of familiar. Separation forces you out of your comfort zone and into a space where you can no longer depend on old patterns or people for stability. In that space, you stretch, you expand, you elevate. Separation also gives you clarity. When you're surrounded by too many voices, it's hard to discern which one is truly speaking life into your purpose. But once certain distractions are removed, your vision sharpens. You begin to realize who was truly for you and who was only around for what they could get from you. You see more clearly who supported your growth versus who was intimidated by it. That clarity is painful at first, but it's necessary. You can't take everyone with you into your next chapter. Some people were only meant for the introduction, and that's okay. Not everyone is equipped for your elevation, and keeping them around can weigh you down more than lift you up. Sometimes the higher you go, the fewer people you'll find beside you. But don't let the solitude fool you into thinking something's wrong. Eagles don't fly in flocks. They soar alone. They rise above the noise, the chatter, and the chaos because they're built differently. And so are you. You weren't made to stay grounded. You weren't made to settle for average. That's why certain things had to be removed. That's why you had to be set apart. Because your destiny is too great to be diluted by comfort.